Today we're going to go over using if statements with lists. And what I will do is I already have a file here that's created using Vi Editor within my terminal. But what I'm going to do is actually remove this file and then recreate the script. That way we can go over it. So I'm going to click this escape key, :X, enter. Then I'm going to do ls to look at the files, and the file that I want to remove is this one here. So all I would need to do is type in rm and then the file name, and that should remove the file. And as you can see here, before we had this file name. After this command, it removed it. So now we need to create a file that we can write out our script. That way we can go over using if statements with lists. So all we would need to do is type in the command is vi or vim, same difference, and then give your file a name. So let's call it what we are going to review, if statements with probably a really lengthy name, lists, but I rather have it descriptive than be confused at what this is. So now we are in the Vi editor. Once you're in here, you actually have to click I to tell the Vi editor that you want to start inserting your script. So you need to type in I, and once you see the insert, then you can actually start typing. So really what we are going to practice is something extremely simple, if statement with lists. And I'm using Python language, hence why I use the extension .py, because that's an indicator of the type of language we are going to use. So if you want to, for an example, add a comment, you can put a $, and then let's say we want to checking for special items in a list using if statements. Okay. So we can give it a couple of spaces, and then we want to create a list. So the scenario is, we'll make it very simple. We have a pizza shop, and we want to have a list of toppings, and we want to then check whether one of the toppings is still available within the list. So the way we do it is, first we have to create a list. So you create a variable, requested toppings equals, and equals, you are assigning, this means you are assigning this variable to whatever will come after. So we're going to assign it to a list of toppings, and a list of toppings is, you need 2 brackets with quotation marks. So the first option in which a user can select from the list of toppings, we have mushrooms on hand as a pizza shop. We also have green peppers, and we have extra cheese. So those are the 3 toppings that we have. The next thing we want to do is create a for loop, because we want to iterate through the list of toppings that we have. And a for loop is extremely simple to create. You start off with the keyword for, and then what proceeds after is a variable in which you can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it index. I'm not sure if this is a little bit confusing for people, but another option is we can call it requested topping in, right? Requested toppings, : and this here, what it does is, what we're saying is, for every item inside of our list, So it's going to take this list here, every item inside of our list, which is mushroom, green pepper, extra cheese, and it's actually going to store it in a variable that we called here. So it's going to take every item in the list and store it inside this variable. So this variable, that's why I mentioned you can pretty much call it whatever you want. We can call it index, but I just don't want us to get too caught up as to what this is doing. All we're doing is we created a list, and then we are telling Python that I want you now to go through these set of lists and store each topping at index 0, index 1, index 2, and then store it inside of this variable called index. So then what we will do is we'll stick with requested toppings. Topping, we have to make it different, so we'll remove the S on this one. So after we create a for loop, Python needs to know what to do. So after you click enter, I have set up my configuration for the Vi editor to automatically indent 4 spaces. Because if you go back and forth between using tab and spaces, it gets confused, and then you'll end up with syntax errors that will take forever to go through and finish and fix actually. So I've actually configured the Vi editor to automatically indent 4 spaces. So now, once we've created our for loop, which means we're taking every item inside of our list, right, and storing it inside of this variable, we want to now check whether a specific ingredient or a specific topping is within our list of items for the customer to select from. This is where we use a if statement. So if requested topping, we're going to use this variable that we've created, because remember, we're taking the list, every single item here, and storing it into a new variable in a for loop. So if we're going to create an if statement to check whether the item is inside of a for loop, we then need to use the variable that we've created for the for loop. So requested topping without an S equals, right? And a double equal is a comparison operator versus a single equal is an assignment operator. So what this is doing here is we're saying I'm assigning my list of toppings to this variable. Then what we're doing here with a double quotation is we're saying I want to compare all the items that we were able to gather and store in this variable and see, does it equal one of the toppings that we're trying to check for? So in this case, I'm just going to use green peppers. So we're checking if requested topping equals one of the items in our list, which is green peppers, what does it want to do? So we want to put a colon again, and then we want to indent 4 spaces and another 4 spaces because this is inside of an if statement. So we're going to use a print function to print out something for the user. So print, sorry, we are out of green peppers. Right now, we are out of green peppers right now. The next thing we want to do is, after we check that the stored toppings equals green peppers, meaning we were able to locate it in the list. This is the statement that it's going to print. There has to be something that precedes after. So there's an else state that we can use, and we can print something else, hence the name else. Okay, so if we find green peppers inside of our requested toppings variable, which stores these toppings, right? We no longer have green peppers, so it's going to inform the user that we no longer have green peppers. Else, what about the other toppings? Because again, we have mushrooms and extra cheese. So we want to know what we want to do then for the customer. We're going to use the F statement, the F string, which I love because then you can pass the variable into your string. Adding curly brackets, and we're going to use the variable that stored all of the items in our list, right? Because this is a for loop. Remember, we took the list of items, which is here, which is assigned to all of these items here, and we stored it into this variable. So now we're going to continuously use the variable within our for loop. Sometimes that gets confusing. Requested topping. So next, I want to come out of the for loop and the if statement, and then I'm just gonna write out another print statement that says, I'm gonna use a new line. If you want to kind of, you know how when you're writing an essay you click enter and it gives you a new line, this is essentially what you need to, the command you need to input, that way it can create a new line. And we can type in finished making your pizza. And that's our script. So the scenario was, I'm a pizza shop and I provide a set of toppings for the user to select from to decorate their pizza. Decorate is probably not the best choice of words, but you have options to put toppings on your pizza. The scenario is that we want to check for special items in a list using an if statement. So this is how you check for special items in a list, is by using a for loop that also has an if statement. A for loop allows you to go through the list of items that you have here. And in order to go through the list of items here, you need to use the assignment operator and provide it a variable. So I called it requested toppings, which is assigned to this list of toppings. From there, we create a for loop. All a for loop does is it goes through the index 0, 1, 2, right? And it stores it into a new variable. This variable name can have any name we want. The only concept that needs to be understood here is that we're using the assigned variable name, which has all of these list of items stored in it. So requested toppings, right? We're saying all of these items inside of our requested toppings, all of these toppings that are stored in this variable, I want to store them in here inside of a for loop. And then after that, I can create my if statement. We are then going to use the variable in which we've created that now has all of our stored variables in, our stored toppings inside this variable, this new variable. If requested topping equals green peppers. So we're saying is, as you go through this and iterate through my list, if you find within the list of toppings, right? If you find a topping within the created list that equals green peppers, please let the customer know that we don't have green peppers right now. Once it does that, we need to specify what else it can do because we have 2 other items in the list. So the next thing it will do is the else print adding requested topping. And remember, this variable is coming from the for loop because we're using the variable in which it's going through the list of items that we have. So this one here now is the one that's storing all of our toppings. After that, we want to come out of the for loop in the if statement and just print a comment to the customer, finished making your pizza. So now that we've written our script, let's see if it works. So what we want to do when you're in the Vi editor, you click escape if you're on a Mac, then :X. This will save, right, and quit your Vi editor. So then it takes you into the terminal. So now we want to run our script, and in order to run our script, you just type in Python 3. Some of you might put in Python and click enter. As you can see here, it ran the script, adding mushrooms. Sorry, we are out of green peppers right now. Adding extra cheese, finished making your pizza. And that's pretty much it. That is how we check for special items in a list using an if statement.